It was a cold October morning when I first met Emmy Lou. It looked to be the little runt. There was something there I knew. Through months of intense training, growing stronger day by day, seemed to know my every thought and would always lead the way. More than a German shepherd, she was my closest friend, a true and faithful partner who would be there to the end. Always right beside me, standing strong and tall. Grace of God goes with her, four-legged hero, giving all. Deployed into a battle zone, a fighting crime on city streets. Emmy knew the dangers that I could never see. Just like Cody, Cena, Buddy, and Axe, to name a very few. Served her tour of duty until her time on earth was through. More than a German shepherd, she was my closest friend.
All right, we'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Military, please render a right-hand salute. Civilians, right hand over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to thank everybody for coming. Today we're here to honor our canine heroes. Their dogs has been in harm's way. It's been protecting us for many years. But you need to know that the official day for canine veterans is March 13th. Now I have to tell you a story. About 5 years ago when we started planning to have the Canine Veteran Day ceremony here, we wanted to be close to March 13 as possible. So we set it up. It was like 3 days after, like March 15th. We got out here, and there was 6 inches of snow on the ground. There was ice everywhere. But like troopers, we continued on, and everybody just totally froze. So we thought, let's get smart. Let's move it out into April. So let's do it the first week in April, we're going to do it. Now, wouldn't you know, a cold front came through. Here we were again. People standing out here shivering. So the next year we said we're going to move it on to the end of April. Well, this happened again. Then we said we're going to move it into May. So last year we moved it into the first weekend in May, and wouldn't you know, a cold front came through. And you know in May, you can have a 60 to 70 degree day, the next day it could be 35. Well, it was 38. And one of our keynote speakers had flown up from Florida. That poor guy stood up here, teeth were chattering, but he got through it, a real trooper. But here we are today. Thank you, God. Finally, warm weather. But again, as we get down to, and we start talking about the canine heroes, here at the Michigan War Dog Memorial, there are 6 categories that we really key in on. The military dog that saved thousands of lives on the battlefield. The law enforcement dog that protects his partner in our city streets and our county. Our search and rescue dog finds our lost children, seniors have lost their way. Our service dog to give the handicapped more independence. Our therapy dog to comfort the ill and the elderly. And our PTSD service dog to give a soldier a sense of security. These are the 6 categories that are allowed to have internment here at the Michigan War Dog Memorial. I'd also like to just mention, I see a lot of new faces that's never been here before. A little bit about the Michigan War Dog Memorial. As most of you know, it was an abandoned pet cemetery that was abandoned in the middle 80s. It would have been established in 1936. And this plot that you're standing on right now looked just like it did behind me. That's what it looked like. And we was able to put together abandoned military veterans and canine supporters. And we said, let's go clean this up. Well, it's going to be a monumental job, but we broke it down in grids. It took us 2 years, but we was able to clean it up. And in 2008, 2012, we formed our nonprofit organization as the Michigan War Dog Memorial, Inc., and changed the name of this site to what it is today. Our main focus was going to be on military and law enforcement. However, in 2016, we added the other 4 categories of the service dogs. In January of 2020, we made a new ruling. Only military and law enforcement will go in the ground, because you can see we're landlocked. And over there you'll see a columbarium, and that's where the service dogs now will go. There's 96 niches over there, so we should be covered for quite a while. But sometimes I get asked the question, what inspired you to take on such a task? And I tell you, it's just like a message came to me. I think what happened out here is just, it's almost like fate. It was meant to be. Because when we needed an army of volunteers, they were here. We would ask for volunteers to do a cleanup. We'd get 55, 60 people showing up. When we need funding, we got it. It just came. With very little soliciting on my part. People stood up because it was needed. Because I think it was meant to be. So, as you stand on this hallowed ground, understand, you're standing on the ground that's been touched by the hand of God. So with that, I'd like to bring Mindy right up for our invocation. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is a good morning, as Phil said.
No snow.
Well, we've gathered here today, yes, to honor those that lay silently before us, to commemorate the service and sacrifices of our country's canine heroes, the thousands of dogs, as you can see represented on the wall and before us, that have served alongside their handlers, and for us to honor those that have given the ultimate sacrifice. So with that, let's pray. Father God, we come with humble and grateful hearts today to acknowledge the amazing companions that you have gifted us with. These are the canine warriors who have served thousands of saved thousands of American lives and the limbs of those soldiers in the world of evil and danger. The names and numbers of these military war dogs will never be forgotten. Thank you for these dogs, the ones that have boldly gone with their handlers to the front lines of war to stand on the wall for all of us. Together, these teams protect others with their hands, with their nose, with their ears, and with their paws. We pray for the canine and handlers that are presently serving, that your divine hand will keep them safe and bring them home. We ask for the healing of the handlers, many that are present here today. For the Iraq, the Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korea, and World War II handlers that live with the treasured memories of their best friend and guardian angels with 4 feet. We ask, Lord, that your grace and gentle touch be on their injured bodies and traumatized spirits to receive your solace and your healing. If these canine could speak to us, I think that this is something that they might say. My eyes are your eyes to watch and protect yours. My ears are your ears to hear and detect the evil minds in the dark. My nose is your nose to scent out the invaders of your domain. When the world that we work in many times seems so insane, and so you may live because my life is also yours. Lord, we are eternally grateful to you, O God, for providing these canine warrior companions to our troops, and we honor them in their service today. Amen.
Now I've got a real treat for you. This all took place about a couple years ago. I got a phone call one day. This guy said, I'm a songwriter and an artist. I'm very impressed with what's going on with the War Dog Memorial. I'd like to have your permission. I'd like to go out and take some of the names off the headstones, and I'd like to write a song. Do I have your permission? I said, well, most definitely. I said, that sounds like a great idea. As a matter of fact, I greatly appreciate it. So, we have that gentleman here today, and he's going to play that song for us. So, if you would, welcome Kenny Lang.
I'm just so humbled and honored to be able to do this. Thank you so much. With love, honor, gratitude, and respect for our four-legged heroes. It was a cold October morning when I first met Emmy Lou. It looked to be the little runt. There was something there I knew. Through months of intense training, growing stronger day by day. Seemed to know my every thought and would always lead the way. More than a German shepherd, she was my closest friend, a true and faithful partner who would be there to the end. Always right beside me, standing strong and tall. Grace of God goes with her, four-legged hero, giving all. Deployed into a battle zone, a fighting crime on city streets. Emmy knew the dangers that I could never see. Just like Cody, Cena, Buddy, and Axe, to name a very few. Served her tour of duty until her time on earth was through. More than a German shepherd, she was my closest friend. True and faithful partner who would be there to the end. Always right beside me, standing strong and tall. Grace of God goes with her, four-legged hero, giving all. Well now, Emmy has gone home now. It was a cold October morning. Somewhere in this land of ours, another hero's born. I think about her always when I cross that rainbow bridge. She'll be waiting right there for me and come running down the ridge. Well, I'll cry, then I'll smile big when I think of the past she trod. You know, it's no coincidence in my mind the dog spelled backwards is God. More than a German shepherd, she was my closest friend. True and faithful partner who would be there to the end. Always right beside me, standing strong and tall. Grace of God goes with her, four-legged hero, giving all. Yeah, the grace of God goes with her, four-legged hero, giving all.
Mike Colwell has been a great supporter of the Moor Dog Memorial. He's been supporting us for the last 5-6 years. He's been here to several of our ceremonies and spoke. Matter of fact, there was twice when he was able to secure an American flag that's flown over the Capitol and present it to us here. So he's become a good friend of the Michigan War Dog Memorial and also a personal good friend. So please welcome Senator Mike Colwell.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon. It's really good to see you without masks on. You've forgotten what your friends look like sometimes, and during this whole ordeal with the COVID, it's been difficult, but I can see that most of us has come through it with flying colors. But thanks again, Phil, and thank you for all of your work, and all of your team's work here on this special ground. Service dogs have been laid to rest here on these grounds since 1930s. Originally, this property was known as the Happy Hunting Ground for the Pet Cemetery, the final resting place for local and nationally known pets and service animals. In fact, I did a little bit of research. I found out that there's even a parrot buried here that was on during came from the Spanish-American War. So someplace around here, there's also a parrot. But after World War II, the grounds were expanded, and they were really working hard to make sure that this was a special place for the service dogs. But over the years, it fell into decay. And then came Phil, along with his team. And they cleaned it up, and they made it into these gardens that it is today for the memorial for these special critters that have served us well. Since its restoration, the military and for the military and police dogs that have been buried here on this site, given with the addition of the Vietnam Wall, the dog memorial on this site is known as the Arlington of pet cemeteries and service dog cemeteries. But you know, with all the hard work that goes into this, it brings out more and more people. And the fact that it isn't well known throughout the state of Michigan yet, through what Phil's work and some of the work that my staff, Lynn O'Brien, has been doing, trying to make this a better known site and to bring more people in to get it known, not just nationally but internationally. And that helped out last year when we placed dogs from Australia and New Zealand, I believe, right? So we're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. And with your help and your conversation with your friends and relatives, you can tell them about this place and tell them to come and visit and bring kids, because these animals served in conflicts throughout the world and conflicts right here in our own backyard. And we want to make sure that they understand that they see that there's a presence here for these, four-legged heroes. And we want to impress on these kids that, yeah, mistakes get made in the past, but we had the opportunity to correct that going into the future. Now, many of you know the stories of the dogs that didn't come back from Vietnam, which in itself is a very sad saga. We just recently pulled out of Afghanistan, and talking with some of my friends, they said that every dog that went in with them that was able to leave left and came home with its handler. So we have gotten better over the years, and it's just it's a matter of time that we hopefully end a lot of these conflicts, and our dogs are more pets and companions than they are war heroes. But thank you very much for letting me just speak for a couple of minutes today. I greatly appreciate the fact that Phil invited me to come out today, and we want to make sure that this place goes on for a long time to come. Thank you very much.
Well, we've got another speaker coming up here in just a second. A gentleman that was in the United States Air Force, he's a canine handler during the Vietnam era, I believe. And he transitioned into the Michigan State Police as a canine handler. So please welcome Chuck Loader.
Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'll try to keep this down to 3 hours. Well, in 1972, I enlisted in the United States Air Force, completed security police tech school. And while in tech school, I went through a canine demonstration put on by the military working dog section. And for those of us that were interested, we were interviewed, and I was selected to attend military working dog patrol dog school in July of 1972. For those of you that know what an MOS is, in the Air Force we call it an AFSC 81150A. And we had transitioned away from sentry dogs to patrol dogs. Now, when I arrived in my first location in 1973, the 8th Security Police Squad in Ubon, Royal Thai Air Force Base in Thailand, most of the dogs there were patrol dogs. Lucky me, I got a sentry dog. And a little different. And when I talked to the commander there, he said, so what's the real difference? He said, this is the best way I can explain it, Chuck. He said, a patrol dog, when you call him out, he lets go and he comes back. A sentry dog, you call him back, whatever he's got in his mouth, he's bringing with him. And that was about the truth. And my first dog there at Ubon was a dog named Adam, and he was the alpha male of alpha males. And sometimes he and I locked horns. And we had 60 dogs there when I was there, 40 of them that were worked by Air Force dog handlers, 20 that were worked by Thai Guard dog handlers. Adam developed some health issues, and I went to a dog named Bruno. And As I was going out on post, the guys that had been there a while said, "Good luck with this one, buddy." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, they call him the snake dog." I said, "The snake dog? What's a snake dog?" "You'll find out." So you go out on the perimeter at night, and our perimeters were about 200 meters in length. And sure enough, we're walking around, and Bruno's head goes down, he comes back, and he's got a banded crate in his mouth. That's a deadly poisonous snake. And when the monsoon started, he had probably ended up picking up at least a half a dozen snakes during the time that I worked him. And in August of '73, I was selected to become a narcotics dog handler. My initial dog was trained primarily as a marijuana dog handler. His name was Spice. He was the only whitish colored German Shepherd we had at the post. And I worked him for a while, and then they asked me to get fully narcotics trained, and I changed to another dog by the name of Buck. And Buck's ears were about that tall, and he was about this tall. And he looked like a flying nun when you're walking through the barracks doing narcotic searches. And in late September of that year, we lost a dog in the kennel to snake bite. And our kennels, you go in the front door, and you always exit the end doors, so you didn't walk into a dog that was being brought in. Well, as I'm exiting the end door, it's kind of swollen shut, so I had to slam it with my shoulder, and as I did, a snake fell out of the rafters into the back of my shirt. And I kind of arched my back, and he fell out, and he pops up, and it was a brown cobra. So he ate about 6 rounds, and I think because of that situation, and I had fired rounds at the kennel, I got selected to do interview for Airman of the Month. I was later selected as Airman of the Month, and the base commander said, "So, I understand you have a thing with snakes." I said, "Well, apparently I do." And he says, "Is there anything you'd like to do here that you've not been able to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to go on a Spectre gunship mission." So, I got to fly on a Spectre gunship mission. And as far as I know, I was the only dog handler there that had that opportunity. So that was kind of interesting. I departed there in January and was assigned to Spangdahlem Air Force Base in Germany. My original dog there was a dog named Oso, a patrol dog. And then I found out there was a dog there by the name of King that had been a sentry dog that had been retrained as a patrol dog, Maloney. So I ended up picking up King, and for you dog handlers, you know how it is. You got to have a good decoy when you're working your dog. Well, this dog knew that, okay, if he sends me out on a bite and the decoy goes to a standstill, he doesn't get to bite. But this dog was pretty smart. He would run into the decoy just with his shoulder. And so what does the decoy do? He moves. And if the decoy moves, he gets a bite. So that dog got a bite 99% of the time that we sent him to training. I was later selected to become a narcotics dog handler there and developed a narcotics program for the base that later earned me an Air Force Commendation Medal. In 1976, since I'd been overseas for 3 years, I was due to get out, but I wanted to come back and at least get familiar with being stateside. I came back to Kinchlow Air Force Base in Kinross, Michigan. My first patrol dog there was a dog named Lucky. Lucky was the first dog that I ever remember having when I was a little boy. I was then given a narcotics dog and worked that dog King until September of 1976. 1978, I was out of the Air Force for almost 2 years, and I became a member of the 95th Michigan State Police Recruit School. The 95th Recruit School was the largest recruit school the Michigan State Police has ever held. We started out with 214 people. We graduated 133. A little bit about the MSP Canine Unit. It started in 1960 with a trooper by the name of Richard Abbott, and his dog's name was Jocko. They were trained in St. Louis, Missouri. When I graduated the academy, I was sent to Ionia, and Ionia had a dog there, and the dog handler was a trooper by the name of Bert Lardy. His dog's name was Con, and his call sign was Canine 13. Now, 13 has come up in my life again and again and again. And I let the post commander know that I was interested in being a dog handler. And in 1986, I was selected. Bert had retired Con. And my first dog was a tracking dog by the name of Max. And at that time, the state police had 24 canine teams. And most of the dogs were single trained dogs. They weren't dual trained. So you didn't have a dog that was a tracking dog and an explosive dog or a narcotics dog. If you had a dual train or a second dog, you had two dogs that were riding around with you. And so I ended up being trained with a narcotics dog by the name of Cinnamon. Cinnamon was a golden retriever, and her and my German Shepherd Max got along real well. And by that time, I also had two dogs of my own. So I had two German Shepherds and two golden retrievers at home. So I ended up moving out of the city of Portland out into the country where we had a little movement and suitable place for the dogs to roam. The training I did, I was selected as a trainer for narcotics and explosive detection. And in 1989, I was a trainer, one of the trainers selected to train 6 new tracking dogs down at Fort Custer. For those of us that have been at Fort Custer and remember those World War I barracks or World War II barracks, a little different than what you have today. Now, my career went pretty well until July 21st of 1991. So that's 30 years coming up. And myself and Warren Miller, who was a dog handler at Rockford, were asked to provide assistance to the Michigan State Police Emergency Support Team. And we were out hunting a murder suspect in the Greenville area. And we ended up with a barricaded gunman that was not the suspect. And we were searching this wooded area that he knew and we didn't, obviously. And we had one set of woods that was about 80 acres we went into at about 6:45 at night. And we had a long line. I was on one end, Warren Miller was on the other end. The ES team was spread out in between. And as we walked into this woods, we went up an embankment, and I heard a trooper to my left yell, "I got him, I got him, I got the MF." And he yells at the guy, drop the gun, drop the gun. And the guy said, "You guys get off my property." And it's, "Come on, you want to give it up." Well, I was down on one knee, and maybe from here to the wall was the suspect that I couldn't see. Unbeknownst to us, he had dug a hole. He was armed with an M1 Grand. He had a .22 rifle, 12-gauge shotgun, and a .45 automatic. He was in camouflage. He had a gas mask. He had first aid supplies. He had food. This gentleman had no intentions of giving up. He said, "Get off my property or I'm going to start shooting." And you could hear him loud and clear. And I've got some little twigs in front of me, little branches. And he said, 1, 2. And the way he enunciated 2, I knew he's shooting. And I looked in front of me and there was a tree stump about yay high. And as he said 3, I was diving. And I took a round off the top of my head. First round fired that day at us. And then the gunfire went on and on and on. And I had lost vision in my left eye because when I dove to the ground, I had Max in one hand, my 9mm in the other, and the 9mm caught me upside the eye and my eyes swelled shut. I couldn't see. And I reached up for my microphone for my radio, and it was gone. Well, when I jumped to the ground, it had come undone, and it was wrapped around my foot. So gunfire was going back and forth, and a lot of gunfire from him, a lot of gunfire from the team, and they're trying to get people out of the kill zone. And I could hear that gun. For those of you who heard an M1 Garand, there's no doubt when that bolt is sliding forward and back, that's a big gun. And I was wearing a vest, but I knew that the vest I had was not going to stop whatever he had. And the shooting went on and on. He was shooting at the helicopter that was flying overhead. Max and I were pinned down for about 2.5 hours. And my dog, no doubt in my life, on my mind, saved my life. Because it was getting dark, and all of a sudden my dog puts his head up on the stump, and all I heard was and movement out in front. And so trying to figure out what am I going to do, I grabbed a hold of my dog's leash, and I'm thinking, I'm going to put him up, yell at the guy. If he shoots and he hits the dog, I'll hold the dog up in front of me, back up, and just fire, trying to get out of the way. Because the dog would not leave. And I really think it was the gunfire. Because we figured out, the lab came out the next day, the suspect had fired between 60 and 80 rounds. We had fired between 15 and 1,800. So that's how much shooting went on that day. And when I yelled, "Max, get him!" and the dog growled and barked, and then you could hear him move back. And I didn't know, he went back to the hole. Well, now the guys knew that I'm out there somewhere, but I didn't want to get shot in the backside near my dog. So Max is laying there with me, and I hear some sticks breaking behind me, and Max growls again. And I'm thinking, okay, so I want to make a sound so they know that I'm one of them. So I start clicking the heels of my boots together, and I hear somebody say, "Who's there?" And I said, "It's Loader." And I hear, "It's Loader, it's Loader, it's Loader, it's Loader." And they said, "We're coming to get you." And I said, "I'm shot in the head. Don't come up here. There's no cover." So I pulled back, pulled my dog back, pulled back, pulled my dog back. When I did it the third time, somebody grabbed my boots, pulled me down the embankment, and stuck a sub gun in my face with a flashlight on it so they could see the wound. And luckily it caught me just above the hairline. And had I not dove, no doubt in my mind, I wouldn't be here today. And so they got me out, got me into a helicopter, and flew me over to the hospital in Grand Rapids. And the suspect that night took on the other canine handler and the ES team. By this time had gotten barricades in, and we lost nobody that night, and he went to see his maker that night. So as a result of that, I was awarded the MSP Bravery Award and the Michigan Association Chiefs of Police Medal of Honor. And I departed the canine unit the following year. I had a little boy at home, Timmy, and I just felt that it was time. So I've had some opportunity to work with the canine unit, do some talking about how to deal with a high stress situation, and that was a little high stress. So, and yesterday I had an opportunity to talk to Dave Yount. Dave Yount is the canine unit commander, and like I said, when I started, we had 22 to 24 handlers, teams out there. Currently, the Michigan State Police has 47 active teams, 52 active dogs. Most of the dogs are trackers. About half the dogs are cross-trained as narcotics or explosive detection. There are currently 7 TED dogs that we have. The TED dog is a tactical entry dog used by the ES team on calls. Something new that they added is arson dogs. We have 4 arson dogs in the state. And something brand new for us, we have 2 cyber dogs. And we use cyber dogs when we're doing search warrants on homes of suspected sex offenders because they're hiding stuff behind walls, and that's been very successful for us. And I would like to thank Phil for this opportunity today, for my fellow handlers, and for everyone that has worked here at the Michigan War Dog Memorial. And as a former canine handler, I can tell you it means a lot to us that have held that, what I call the dumb end of the leash. But the one thing that we learn when you're a dog handler, listen to your dog. They'll get you home. Thank you very much.
All right, we got one more speaker. He's a deputy. He doesn't like to say much. He's kind of quiet, usually. But anyways, Deputy Richardson has been a supporter of the Michigan War Dog Memorial ever since we started. He's come to several of our events. And I'm pleased to welcome Deputy Mike Richardson.
Phil's exactly right on my talking bit. I'm not a big talker. But to add on to his story and Warren Miller. Warren's part of our association through NAPS. And one of the first years that we started out back in 2005 or 6-ish or something like that when we started the association, Warren was up there teaching us. So I've heard some of that story. I did not hear it quite like that. But we were up there, and part of the canine world is it's a small world, right? So we're all touching each other in one way or another, especially in a small portion like a state rather than the military. So we're out there, and he started training us in some urban tracking and also in the woods. And that's where we heard that story there, because we were out in the woods doing some maneuvers out there, and he taught us things probably we learned that day exactly you learned that day. So some of that's transferred on all the way up to somebody like me. So that's something I use every day with that. So I'm going to change up a little bit, and instead of some stories and that, and do some question and answer period. So if you guys have any questions or something like that, come up with something, I'll try to answer for you. Phil provided some questions that he wanted to answer and would like to hear. So one of that is how canine handlers differs from a normal canine officer. Well, for one, as a regular officer, you go from call to call. With our department, how we do it, we also are exactly like a regular patrol officer, but we have a dog in the back. So we also have that added responsibility. But with that, we train our dogs to go find the bad guys. So we're a lot more likely to engage the bad guys than to find the bad guys. So with that, we're showing up on scene with the dog on regular calls, and just with that responsibility there. But when we're going there with the dog, we're switching gears and we're going into the dog room. So we're training for that with all the dogs. With all that added responsibility, officers are probably close to 30-ish more likely to have career-ending injuries during that time. And also, things like he said, when we have a serious incident, we're a lot more likely to give up dogs after that when you get out of canine. And that's one of the sad things. Canine is one of those things that our experience with dogs just doesn't transfer. If you're a detective, you can transfer back to the road and still use your detective skills. As a canine officer, once you learn something, you get better and better and better as you go. So having that experience goes a long way. We're also up to 20 times more likely to get killed on the line of duty. Teaching our dogs to go find that bad guy, training them to go find somebody that's more likely to kill us. So we get into those situations. So that's some of the things with that differs just between being a normal and a canine officer. Plus at home, my dog goes home with me. Most departments are like that. We don't kennel them at the station. We bring them home. So it's not only part of my family, but my wife has to take care of them in ways. We have to worry about vacations and things like that. So it's always something extra. And if you want a good dog, you have to train for it. So there's a lot of extra work that goes into it than just straight up coming in, putting on your uniform, waiting for the bell to ring and go back home. So, you know, it becomes a lifestyle. And it's one of those things that makes canine special too. And I'll get into some of that with some of these other questions. Next question that Phil asked was, what made you decide to take the path of a canine officer? Probably the big thing is who doesn't want to have a dog in a car, right? Everyone sees that. It looks cool. It's awesome until you get the dog at the end of the leash. Then it's like, oh, what do I do with this? And one of those things, when I decided to get into canine and take that as a career path, I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to get into this, I'm going to make sure that I train this dog so he has a good chance of finding something or finding someone. So that's basically what I strive on and what I go by nowadays is that I want to make sure that I train enough to when I get that call, if something's there or someone is there, that we have a good chance of finding it. And to do that, it takes a ton of extra time. Going back to some of the first question, you know, it's just all time consuming in that to have a really great dog. But with that, it has made my career, you know, just special having some of the dogs that I have. Next question is, what was the selection process for your canine, and how did the partnership develop between you two? That's a question that we get a lot of, how do you choose your dogs, right? My last dog, Eco, that I have in the car, I chose him with a purpose. My dog before that, Blitz, I chose him with a purpose. Blitz I chose as a puppy, so I went to our importer that we have over in the Netherlands and told him I wanted a puppy. And we went out to some of his different KMPD clubs over there. KMPD is a sport dog association that they have in the Netherlands. And so he was able to get a dog that I was looking for, a type of dog. So I took a chance on that, started him out at 8 weeks old. Decided right then if he wasn't going to work out in the end, I wasn't going to work him, I would get rid of him and move on. So he ended up working out and one of the best dogs that I've seen in a long time for sure. But part of that is just the training that went into it. Eco is a little bit different. Once I learned about having a puppy and how long it takes to train and all the other issues with a puppy, I decided I'd never do that again, at least for training wise, as a canine. So I decided to get with my importer again with Eco and told him exactly what I was looking for, and he also knows me and knows what I look for in dogs. So he went out and found a few dogs for me, went over to the Netherlands and chose, got to look at a few dogs and ended up choosing Eco when the time came. So that's not normally what happens. That happens with officers that have experience in that. What normally happens is that a department decides to get a canine and choose the canine. And so what they do is that if they're smart, they get a good trainer. And they find a good trainer, usually within their own department. And they go and choose a dog at some of the different facilities that we have around the area. They import dogs from overseas. As a whole, we like to choose the dogs from overseas because Americans just don't breed the dogs the same way. Over there, they breed the dogs to work. They want working dogs. They want dogs that are over there in some of the clubs. So it's hard to find dogs sometimes in America that are trained just for that working that we need for us. I need a dog that's going to go into that dark room in the middle of the night after somebody that just got done firing off a shot or doing something like that. And that's hard for dogs to do. It's just not natural, right? So we find those special dogs, and it's difficult. So having a trainer from the get-go and finding the right dog is a huge thing for all canine officers. So we look for that, bring it in, and train the dog up, usually for a little bit of time, and then we give it to the handler at that point. But for the most part, if you're choosing the dog right, you're not involved in the handler. Most of the time, if you involve the handler, they're choosing a dog that's pretty rather than one that works. And that could be an issue, like I said, when it comes down to situations like we talked about, or just everyday things. Next question with that. Provide your connection or bond with the dog. And some of that starts out from the initial time of choosing a dog and getting a dog. The big thing is the bond's going to develop over time. And it does that because of the time that you spend with the dog. I'm with my dog almost every single day of the year, almost 24 hours a day at some point, minus sleeping in that. He's going to work with me. I'm seeing him more than my wife and family. So he's in the back of the car with me when I'm at work. And we get into something that's a little bit nasty or scary or something like that. He's the one that's in the back of the car behind me. He's either howling or barking or laying down, drinking water. So he's at least there for me, right? I get home, and now they got to switch gears like I switch gears. And they got to switch gears and go into a different kind of mode there. Our dogs that we pick, they're not pets, so they're not the typical pet where they can come inside and sit there and go ahead, when we're relaxing, come and relax with us, right? While I'm sitting down relaxing, the dog's up looking for something to chew on, getting up, he'll grab something, come and jump on me, jump down, grab a ball, things like that. But all that is all part of the bonding process. That's what makes the dog special, knowing that they're going to be there for me. And even though that they get to be a pain in the butt sometimes and there's so much time spent with them, that's all part of the bonding portion of it. And that's what makes these dogs special to people like us. It's hard to explain to people for sure, the bond and how it is. Military people can appreciate it for sure. When you're going into war, you'll lay down your life for your buddy next to you, right? And that's the same thing that we get with our dogs. We know these dogs will sacrifice for us. Yeah, they're dumb beasts, in a way, but on the other point, and they don't know that they're sacrificing their lives, but we know, right? Deep down, we know that they will do that. And that sacrifice, knowing that, is what makes the bond special between us and canines. What assets do canines provide that enhance your position and capability as a police officer? Well, the biggest asset that a canine has is its nose. That's what we use it for, right? Their eyesight's pretty horrible. Hearing isn't much better than ours, just that they got little directive radar that they can direct and hear things better than us. But us being the dumb end of the leash, and them being the sharp end of the leash, you start reading your dog and knowing what they're doing. Tracking in the circumstances in the middle of the woods at nighttime, the only thing you can see is ears and a tail, sometimes less than that. So that's what you're reading as you're chasing bad guys. So what that dog does, and just being able to see the little twitches in the ears and what the dog's tail is doing, or just how their body posture is, that is huge. And at that point, they're just going off of nose. So that's the most important thing of the dogs, and that's what we use them for. Is the huge portion is their nose work. That's what gets us at the end of the track finding the bad guy. That's what gets us finding the dope. The small little portions of dope. Blitz was part of one of the biggest drug busts on this side of the Mississippi. Huge drug bust, but that was nothing compared to finding just a small amount of heroin in a car where there was babies in the back seat of the car crying in the seats, and mother and father in the front seat laid back, basically gone from doing heroin. So finding that small amount of heroin in there to charge them, to get them the help that they refused to get themselves, meant more to me than finding 80, 90 kilos of methamphetamine and heroin and cocaine all together. So things like that. So from that, I'll open up to people that have any questions and try to answer those for you. Anybody have any questions? Come on, there's plenty out there. Anybody curious about what we do? Just some of the questions?
I just want to know how often you train your dog and how many hours you spend training each week.
how often do we train our dogs and the hours each week. What the department gives us, our department works off, we usually do once a week training for 8 hours a day during our 8-hour shift. Most departments, if they're lucky, they're doing 2 times a month for 8-hour period. And during that time, we can be taken away doing all kinds of other things. So that portion of the training is nothing compared to what it is. I'm training my dog almost every day, whether I'm working or not, doing something with him. So even when I'm off, I'm taking him out, throwing him the ball, practicing recalls with him. So I'll send him out, call him back, some control stuff. So I'm usually doing something with him. During my day of work, while I'm doing, all the other officers are out patrolling around, I'll stop and I'll lay a track. So I'll do that. So I'm more or less doing something with my dog every day. And that's to fulfill my promise that I said in the beginning to make sure I have a good chance of finding the person I'm looking for or finding the thing I'm looking for. Another question?
Yes. With everything you do today, how do you contend with the media?
Everything we do today is how do we contend with the media? Well, fortunately for me and my department, we have a great sheriff. And our sheriff is definitely political, and he's the one that likes to contend with the media. So we don't have to really deal with the media. Something else gets involved with that for us. So there's always a buffer for us as officers, which is huge. But we all feel it. We feel everything. We see everything. As soon as you turn on the television, you see all the negativity in that. So, it's a difficult thing. And, there's a lot of things that aren't being said that the media isn't getting out or the bosses don't want to let out. We're having a hard time finding qualified people. So all this, going on, they want to do police reform and that, but so they want to do that to get better officers, but it can't happen the way that they're doing it because they're not getting better officers because all the better officers are quitting, right? We've been trained. I've gone through training for 25 years as I've been in the department. So, that's, if I were to leave, that's 25 years of experience going down the hill. So it becomes difficult and frustrating, but mostly it's, we're just losing good quality people, and we're having a hard time hiring anybody, let alone quality people.
I was just wondering, during the training process, what type of reward is it? Is it food? Is it toy?
During the training process, what kind of rewards do we use? I use whatever I can. Training has changed drastically from when I started. I think I got 16 years in K9 now. Before that, I was a sport dog trainer, so I trained labs for field trials and hunt tests. So, I was training dogs to do some great things. Back then, we just trained just to retrieve, right? But nowadays, we've gotten to the point to where we use food, we use toys. The dogs that we choose are so driven to get a toy in that sometimes it can become real difficult, with just using a toy. So as much as we find out to train, we're getting better and better. The invention of the internet, right? It's been horrible, but it's been great for us because we're able to get nationwide or now across the world, get information quickly. I can find something out, that's good and bad for training just by looking up on Google, right? Where 15 years ago I wasn't able to find that. We were kind of all localized to our own training groups. But now if you're with your own training group, you're just behind and slow. So you're not getting out there and getting the most out of the dogs. So that's one thing. I believe in training a lot of things. So food is one way. Definitely toys work great for me because my dog will go crazy for a ball. He'll do anything for a ball. Another question?
Especially if it's attached to the criminal.
Well, thanks for listening. I want to thank everybody that comes here and volunteers their time and helps this place out. This is something that's definitely dear to my heart, for sure. And what Phil's done has just been tremendous. And all the volunteers, everything that you do is just tremendous. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Well, man, what can you say? That was some great information, great insight to what's been provided. I've always been familiar with the military side, but did not have that kind of insight that what the police go through and what they deal with on a daily basis and the relationships that they have with their canine. At this time, we're going to move more into the honor side of our ceremony and honoring these great canines that have sacrificed everything. And to start doing that, we're going to start off with the VFW, and would you please post the wreath? At this point, let's take a moment of silence to honor our fallen canines. Thank you. Bugler, sound off. The Canine Salute Team now will present their salute to our fallen canines. Thank you. To all of you, I'm new to this microphone, so I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Stan Aaron. I'm a sergeant, a U.S. Army combat veteran. I joined the War Dogs Memorial in Wisconsin about 8 to 10 years ago and recently moved to Michigan and was overwhelmed with what I saw when I came here for the first time to see the Vietnam Wall and everything that was here. Getting to know Phil, and I jumped in and wanted to help out as much as I could. I've been working with Phil in the background on many things for the past few years, and I've been able to now spend more time working together with the team here and getting to know everyone. One thing I wanted to bring to light today that I talked to Phil about is that in many ways these canines go through the same experience that we do as humans. And from the point of it, they're brought into our homes, they're raised from babies, they spend their life in our homes, become part of our family, and obviously most times more so than our own children. Our own children marry off and go away to start their own families, where these canines stay with us and they finish their life within our home. And on the other side of it, you have select few
just like humans that are called to go into the military, to serve, to excel, and to protect. And the same with these canines. They are selected from, as the few, the ones that perform, and depending on what their job becomes in the military, they go through a series of training and certifications. But they are in their own separate group compared to the rest of the population. They work every day to support the soldiers that they train with and to protect those soldiers, and that they earn that trust and that bond. And that's why we're here. We're here to honor those that support this country, support our soldiers, and commit their lives to doing so. I want to thank everyone for coming. I think this has been an outstanding start to our year and honoring these fine canine animals. So, just bow your head with me and end the day with a prayer. Thank you, Lord, for this time together, to give us the chance to respect and honor these fallen canines, and to support us as we go on about our way this weekend. Thank you for this time together. We pray you bless us in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Standing strong and tall, grace of God goes with her, four-legged hero, giving all. Well now, Emmy has gone home now. It was a cold October morning. Somewhere in this land of ours, another hero's born. I think about her always when I cross that rainbow bridge. She'll be waiting right there for me and come running down the ridge. Well, I'll cry, then I'll smile big when I think of the past she trod. You know, it's no coincidence in my mind the dog spelled backwards is God. More than a German shepherd, she was my closest.